Mackenzie,
Lamar.
we haven't recorded in a month thanks to our
I
May theme.
know. We had to recover from our day-long trauma, I guess. No, it was
Yeah, that
great.
was like 12 straight hours of binge drinking. If you guys did not listen to those episodes, they get progressively sillier in the month of May, movie-wise and our content-wise. I highly
Yeah.
recommend giving them a listen.
Yeah. I think we started off in the right order too. Like
Mhm.
we took the one seriously that we needed to, and yeah, then it just gets silly, but it's a good time for sure.
110%. So we are moving on to a new month. We will explain that after the intro. I'll let you handle that. But we're talking about a movie today that has to do with painting / art, amongst a whole other bunch of plot points. But
Yeah.
I was wondering if your personality was put to canvas, if they paid an artist to be like, hey, hang out with me for a month and then turn not me like the image, no portraits allowed in this answer, turn my personality into an image on canvas of some kind. Like, what type of painting or style would it be in? Would it be like pop art? Would it be surrealist? Would it be a landscape? What are you thinking?
Well, I don't think I could pull off a landscape, to be honest with you, but let's see. I think first of all, whoever's deciding to do this, don't waste your money. This is a terrible idea. Don't paint don't paint a picture of me. I think the thing that comes to mind is like an impressionist painting.
Okay, why is that?
So for those who may be unfamiliar, think that like a la Monet, meaning like little tiny brush strokes that are really hard to discern when you're up close, but when you get far back, you can kind of see the beauty of the photo or the understand the lines of the painting better, rather.
It's like the opposite of those 3D images that you used to have to stare at for 20 seconds to get it to pop out.
Right.
It's like the flip side of that. Okay, got it.
Yeah,
Now it makes
exactly.
sense.
I don't know. There's a lot to that. I just feel like, it's easier. Like there's an impression, no pun intended, of me from afar. And then you get close and it's a little different, I think. So probably something like that. What about you?
I like the metaphor there. I think that's very
Thank
well
you.
crafted. Way to go.
Thank you.
For me, I don't know. I feel like if you asked my friends, the people around me, you are a friend of mine. If I asked you, I feel like pop
I have an
art's
answer
easy...
for sure.
Okay. Well, what's yours before I give mine?
Pop art. Yeah. Yeah.
I feel like
I thought about this earlier and I was like, it wouldn't be surrealist, but I do think it would be either like abstract or pop art or something like that.
Yeah, pop art, like very colorful, like obvious references to pop culture. Like, not only am I on this podcast, but I'm big into music and big into superheroes and like nerdy shit and board games. So I feel like pop art is right there to be taken. But I feel like if somebody hung out with me for a month, I'm going to go out on a limb here. I actually, after looking through all the definitions, like I'm sure you did, or well, you probably know art more than me, but I actually went for expressionism because I feel like my reality, to me, like the way I see life, is probably a little different. It's weird. In my head, I see and maybe everyone else does this too, but you see every little scenario that you encounter. You're the hero of your own story, right?
Yeah.
So I'm probably not doing a great job of explaining this, but I feel like something that is, to your point, like kind of abstract, but it's like evoking moods, ideas, etc. I'm pulling directly from the definition at this point, but I feel like that's probably where the actual core of me is at, of like this abstract idea of how I picture life.
Yeah, I get it. I think I'm surprised, but
you sound like me every time I go to a museum and I stand in front. I'm like, I get it. Just let everyone know that, like, yes, I understand this art. So.
No, I get your analogy. I would have thought, to me, that sounds like persona, aka pop art or abstract, whatever, versus reality. And that's a similar thing that I'm saying with the impressionist piece, because I think it's the same kind of thing. It's like you exude a certain something, all of us do. And as people get to know us, they realize the layers there. So yeah, I think that's a good one for you. I like it.
I think we did great at this cold
We
opening. I thought we were going to be rusty. I feel like this was pretty solid.
We crushed it. All right, let's not jinx it. Let's roll. Welcome back to We Drink and We Watch Things. I'm Mackenzie.
I am Lemar, French.
Lemar. Yeah. That's the French edition. Lamar French edition. Appropriate. So if you hadn't heard, new month, new theme here on the pod. So this June, we are going to celebrate Pride Month, which we actually haven't done yet. We did Juneteenth, which we thought was great. We did a Just June where we had to put all our catch-alls in because we had some randoms. But I thought this year we would go ahead and do Pride Month. It'd be a good plan. And we are going to do a film representative from LGBT because there's 4 weeks, so nobody get upset. That's where
we didn't do
stop.
The Q or the plus. God damn, we're already in trouble.
QIA plus, we're already in trouble.
We're not being completely inclusive. We need to do 2 bonus episodes.
I know. Maybe we'll do some like short clips. I don't know, or a top 10 of other ones you should go see. But anyway, we are going to kick things off with the L with Portrait of a Lady on Fire.
My first time seeing this.
Yeah. Well, okay, so I'm so excited. It's not my first time, but I'm excited to talk about it with you. But before we get to that, what are we drinking?
Yeah, so we're drinking a recipe that you crafted. You did admit that you're getting a little extra with this. And depending on I'm going to do my best this whole month. I want to try to get some representation on the pod. So neither Mackenzie or myself falls under, any of the categories that fall under Pride Month, but
we're allies.
Yes, allies for sure. My friend Nathan is going to give his 2 cents on the birdcage next week. He's supposed to be texting me his thoughts. But we don't have voice on the pod, and I'm going to do my best not to put my foot in my mouth. I might make some jokes, but
he's by no means, guys.
I don't want to lean into any stereotypes or anything like that. But I will say, if you're of this belief, Mackenzie saying she's going to be a little bit extra, I think that's a little bit fitting for Pride Month. It's going to be a little bit extra. I think that's okay,
I did. I went hard on this one. That's actually a good call out. It was very intentional. That's what it was.
There you go. So this is, to finally get to the recipe, apologies, 2 ounces of mezcal, 1 ounce of fresh lemon juice, 0.75 ounces of blood orange syrup or palm juice, one or the other. You need an egg white. And then to complicate things, you need a sugar cube, wait for it, soaked in 151 proof rum and a rosemary sprig. So I hope you guys are taking notes on everything there, or you have this transcripting. You're going to basically put the mezcal, the lemon juice, the blood orange or palm, whichever one you go with, and the egg white into a shaker. And then you have to do that dry shake thing that we've talked about before, because if you shake it with ice, you're going to get those chunks of gross egg white stuff in your drink. Don't do that. So give it a shake without ice first, then add ice to the shaker, shake it again until it's chilled, strain that into a coupe. And then here's where the complicated part comes in. And, set your smoke detectors off or cover them up for a second, because you're going to lay a metal coffee spoon across the rim of the glass, place that sugar cube on the spoon, and it should be soaked, like we said, in the rum, in order to help you light the sugar cube on fire and not burn your house down. Please don't sue us. Just before drinking, drop the flaming sugar cube into the center of the drink and stir. And we are calling this, after all that, the canvas and the flame.
Yeah. All right. Cheers.
Cheers.
Listen, if you didn't know, guys, I kind of have a thing for fire. So I had to incorporate fire. I thought it was appropriate. This is the one time.
I think we have that in common, because half of my tattoos on this arm are all flames in some capacity. Didn't occur to me till 5 years ago, but yeah.
We love a good fire moment. And I will say the rum proof does matter, because it won't light up.
It won't burn if it's not
otherwise.
Okay.
Or you got to super soak the sugar cube. The problem with sugar cube, when you put it to a flame, it'll either melt the cube or light the alcohol on fire. So that's why you have the proof. You have to have the proofing, right? Anyway, it's a fun time. And I have I challenged Lamar with this one. So how did it go with a blob?
Unfortunately, I was not able to. Yeah, I did not have a sugar cube. I was also short on time, so I was not able. I actually just subbed in a little bit of simple in there in place of that, and some rum, just a tiny bit of rum. But it came out really good. I know this. Sorry,
less simple. I said, if you guys do that as well, just do less simple, because it'll get super.
Yeah, because you already have the blood orange syrup in there. Yeah. I love a sweet drink, but for what it's worth, I know this isn't exactly your recipe, but it came out really good. I was concerned about how's the egg white and the blood orange going to play off each other, but it's super tasty.
Thank you. Yeah. I think it came out good. So sorry, not sorry for being extra, you guys. You're welcome. All right. Let's do some basics, and then we're going to talk about all the fun stuff in this one. Okay, so again, Portrait of a Lady on Fire. This came out in 2019. This was an 8 out of 10 on IMDb, 98% from critics on Rotten Tomatoes, and 92% from audiences. So pretty universally acclaimed. Very strong. Very strong.
For that one thing. What's the one thing it's not universally acclaimed, which is kind of shocking to me?
Are you talking about on Letterboxd?
I'm talking about Oscar noms. After watching this, I am shocked it got 0 nominations. Are you?
Yeah, I mean, no, it was shortlisted. It just didn't make it to the final round. I mean, it competed at Cannes for the Palme d'Or, which is the highest prize at Cannes, if you didn't know. And it did win a couple of things at Cannes. It won the Queer Palm, which is actually like an external award, not affiliated with the festival, but it's like a compliment to the festival. And she was the first woman director to ever win that. So that was really
Oh, good for
cool.
her.
And then she also won best screenplay for this as well. So
Okay.
I think maybe in terms of Oscars, especially like if you think like 2019, this is a really minimal screenplay actually. It's like there's very minimal dialogue. So I wonder in terms of audiences for Oscar films, maybe it didn't quite make it through at that point. But
Yeah, I
I think it's
felt
really strong.
agreed, and I felt the performances were what stood out the most to me. There's so for the little amount of dialogue, a lot of this leans on sort of facial expressions,
There's
and the
just
two of
yeah.
them, just the eye contact and the different looks they give each other. And I thought the performances, if anything, I would have thought there'd be a best actress or best supporting actress here. And then I did read that unfortunately, I didn't even know this was a thing, but it didn't get a nomination for best foreign film because France had already submitted Les Mis, which seems silly to
Mhm.
me to be like, we're going to pick this movie based on a musical that's been doing its thing
It
for 30
doesn't to me.
years. Like that seems so, and I didn't know that each country only got one nominee or could only send one forward, you know?
Well, they have to pick different categories if they're going to
Okay.
submit it more than once, because there are international films that have done both, but they submit it for a different category. So you
Got
can't
it.
do one, two in one category. But it actually doesn't surprise me just in terms of marketing. I mean, you guys like the problem with the Oscars, while I love doing the run every year, is it's very political and it's very like PR and marketing, right? So
Mm-hmm.
they're strategic about the ones that they choose because it's like Les Mis is a globally known musical and now film that we can likely win with. I
It
think
just
that's what
feels
that's about.
lazy. Like
I mean, I'm
when
not
you're,
arguing with you.
I'm not
Yeah.
saying that it's not good, and I'm not like Wicked was the first Wicked was really good, but to me it feels unfair when you're adapting. It's one thing to adapt a book where say like 30%
Yeah.
of the work is done for you. You have a story, you
Mhm.
have the base, the like blueprint for a script, but you have to make it into a screenplay, and then comes in all the directing and editing and all that. With a musical, I would say like 60 to 70% of the work is already done for you. You don't have to change a
Certainly when
ton.
you're adapting
It's
it. Yeah,
yeah, it's more
absolutely.
about the visuals. So to me, that just seems a little bit lazy when you have something semi like original like this. I don't know.
I think in terms of filmmaking, this was a real feat of filmmaking because, like you're saying, it's an original story. It's the way that it's shot, I mean, just so many things about it that are very unique that we'll get into. But yeah, like I said, I think I understand why they would put Les Mis forward, but this is as stronger an entry in terms of again filmmaking, and it's really a testament to her work. So I mean, to that end, Céline Sciamma is our writer director, and she has done a couple of things that people might know, which mostly Girlhood is probably the one that people in the States would know, but then Petite Maman, which is the French film. So she does a lot of French film, obviously. And then the cinematography here, I really wanted to call out. I think it's just really profoundly done. Is Claire Methon. She did Spencer, I think is what people will know her for. She's done a lot of French film, but she did Spencer. That was the one with Kristen Stewart playing uh, Princess Diana. So she just does an incredible job in this film to me, like in the environment that she's in, and she makes some really interesting choices that we can talk about. And
Yeah, I've
then
got at least three shots that I want to call out once we get into spoiler territory, so I'll remember that name.
yeah, she's incredible. And then another thing that I think, again, when we talk about the uniqueness of this film, like another thing that is very unique is how the music is handled. There's not a traditional score here, and that was very intentional. There's actually an original single that we see performed at one point, and it's the translation of it is The Young Lady on Fire, Les Jeunes Filles en Feu. I could be
Nailed
saying
it.
that really wrong, but I did try. And that was composed by Parawan and Arthur Simonini. So there's not like again, there's not a traditional composer here, but that's the anchor of this film, and it's performed with a female choir a cappella like we see in the film, and the rhythmic clapping as well. So it's a very intentional piece, and I think it's such a profound moment in the film. It's worth calling out how different it is.
Yeah, I didn't pick up on the fact that there wasn't a score until after the movie finished, and I started going through the fact. I was like, oh yeah, there was like a couple bits of music in the middle and the end, and then that moment is really cool. But I didn't even pick up on the fact that there was no music throughout, aside
I
from those.
think it is. We'll talk about this kind of ad nauseum, but it is. This film is so much about the gaze and not about anything else.
It's Pride Month.
I know, it's funny. Somebody else, like, there's actually a musical, Death Becomes Her, that makes that joke, by the way. Check it out if you haven't.
The homonyms,
yeah. So, but it's about not, and it's here it's very much the female gaze, but it's the gaze in general.
Those longing glances, yeah.
And I think it would almost be overwhelming if there was too much else happening in those same moments. So we'll get into it, but it's very fascinating to watch. All right, major cast and crew here. Noémie Merlant plays Marianne. We just talked about her in Tar.
She's really good in that.
Yeah, she was great in that. But she also this year at Cannes was in Roma Elastica. And I haven't seen it yet, but that just showed at Cannes. So she just did that recently. And then Adèle Haenel, who plays Eloise, she is known for The Unknown Girl, but also one that I think maybe is slightly more well known here is Water Lilies. Both of those showed at Cannes at various points. And then also one of our other cast members who has a very small role, Christelle Barras, is the abortionist in this. She plays that. They don't give her a name. That's her title in this. She is like doing the most. She is the casting director. She is one of the costume designers. She is in the movie. I think she's also a producer. I could be wrong, but she did Water Lilies as well. We also have Luana Barami, who plays Sophie. I just saw this last year in my Oscar run. I may or may not have mentioned it already, but it was really interesting. Two people exchanging saliva. And that was a French short film that went to the Oscars. And it's basically about an alternate universe where kissing is illegal. So
what? How have I not seen this? I love a dystopia.
I mean, it was really good. It's really weird.
What was it called? Two people exchanging saliva?
Two people exchanging saliva.
That's going in the Notebook. I am intrigued.
Yeah, you're welcome. Highly recommend it. It's very French, and it's very different, and it's a good time. And she does a great job in it.
It's funny because I had written down in my notes for this one, there's a shot that just reminded like 16-year-old me of watching Cruel Intentions when there's the kissing and there's the saliva between. I went, oh my God, I'm getting flashbacks to being a very horny 16-year-old.
I was going to say that horny 16-year-old, Cruel Intentions moment is a real thing. So, okay, last one I want to mention is Armande Boulanger. She was the painting student. I know she's here only briefly, but I like that she has these moments so she calls out important things. She has done mostly French short films and then one feature, Little Bear, that she's a bit more well known for. I've seen a couple of her shorts. I Am Not a Swan, for example, and they're all really interesting. But yeah, she seems to be mostly a short film actress. And then we also have Valeria Golino, who plays the Countess. She's been in a bunch of things. She is an Italian actress, and she speaks Italian and French just beautifully in this film. But people would probably know her from Rain Man, but also more recently, she was on The Morning Show, the series on Apple TV. She was in, I think it's the most recent season or maybe the second season.
I partially disagree, because I remember her from Hot Shots and Hot Shots Part 2.
That's another one, yeah. More recently.
That's horny 12-year-old me remembering her in Hot Shots. So everything is tied to.
I was going to say everything on this list is about. So we're watching a lesbian film, and Lamar is a man. So he's this horny 40-year-old. Now we've got horny 12-year-old Lamar, horny 16-year-old Lamar. That's this whole cast. That's this whole film experience.
I think I need to go back and re-answer my cold open question. It'd be like an erotic painting, I don't know.
Oh, we found your niche. It's fine. Okay, last one. Armande Boulanger, I want to mention. She plays the painting student, and while she's only here briefly, she has a couple, I think, key moments in terms of how she interacts with our lead. She has done Little Bear, is something she's probably well known for, but also just a lot of French short films seems to be kind of her repertoire. I've seen I Am Not a Swan that she was in that was good, but she's got a bunch of those, so that's kind of her wheelhouse, seems like. Alrighty, quick plot summary, and then we'll throw down the spoiler and get going. So, on an isolated island in Brittany at the end of the 18th century, a female painter is obliged to paint a wedding portrait of a young woman. Accurate? Broad?
Yeah,
They got it down. They got it down.
nailed it.
All right, kids, turn around, don't drown. It is spoiler time. Okay, this is a great film, like
Yeah.
objectively a great film. I think we just got to start there. So I just want to warn everybody, I'm basically going to gush. I think there's so many layers to this. This is maybe my third watch of this. So it was a really fun experience for me. But my first like gut check question for you is, was this what you expected? Like having, previewed and looked at it when we talked about it?
I think so. I remember seeing a trailer for this at the Draft House. I don't remember what movie I was seeing at the time, but they showed, I don't know if this was a Draft House Recommends title or I just happened to catch a trailer. But I remember being like, okay, it's a neon picture, which isn't quite A24 like, but it's similar artsy vibes. And I remember the trailer like kind of giving enough away that I think I knew what I was walking into. I did really enjoy the story in this. I think the first 30 minutes, the buildup takes a little longer than I would want on a first watch, but I think if I were to rewatch it, I'd appreciate those first 30 or 45 minutes a little more. But also picked up on, was it just me? Did you get elements of gothic horror in this? I know that's from left field, but the fact that they're isolated in this house, there's only a handful of characters. There's some shots in the beginning where I think the fact that it doesn't have a score also helps this. But when she sees the painting faced backwards and then there's this slow approach to the painting and she turns it around, like there's very suspenseful. You see the face washed out, like completely not like finished. And then there's the hooded figure when she's chasing her initially. She runs toward the cliff. There's the ghost, like her vision shots later. I feel like there's so much gothic horror in this that actually that kind of was part of the appeal to me and why I enjoyed it more.
Yeah, I mean, I hadn't thought about it that way, but there are several moments, like even when we look at the playing with lighting and then all the ones that you just called out as well. It's an atypical gothic horror, but those are certainly like some gothic horror moments. The one in particular, of course, is like that ghostly haunting, almost premonition thing that she experiences over and over. So I could totally see that. And I agree with you. I think this is maybe why this wasn't as commercially acceptable and maybe didn't make it to the Oscars, is that buildup. It doesn't bother me in terms of pacing. Like I still have a great experience watching it, and I think the buildup pays off. But there is kind of a slow burn to get where we're going and understand the circumstances, and so I get how that could slow you down when you're first watching it, maybe make it hard to engage. This didn't release widely. So this was like a 4.5 million euro budget. And then it made like 9.9 million in terms of distribution post Cannes. Okay. So it did okay in terms of payback, but it just wasn't widely released. I think a lot of people probably had that experience of like, this is slow and not necessarily
if you had told me, if I knew nothing about this and you told me going in this is a horror movie, for the first 30 or 45 minutes I would believe you, because it is like kind of unsettling. It's this girl who won't show her face and it's like she's avoiding all these people, she doesn't want to be drawn, and there's the weird painting, like it's kind of creepy for the first half hour. But to your point, I think what this does is it's an exercise in patience. I think the other thing that would be interesting is going into this not knowing that we're doing it during Pride Month. Like I knew that there was going to be, I think the trailer gave away that there was going to be a romance involved. Going into this not knowing that and having to wait and see how this friendship / you don't know what develops would actually be kind of interesting.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good call out. I mean, I think they make it clear in the trailer, even back when it came out, that there was going to be an element of that. But I do think it's interesting because it could have just become an intense friendship. It could have been almost like a antagonistic relationship, arguably, because of the way that it starts out. So yeah, I think that could be an interesting experience. I agree. I think I knew going in that there was going to be an element of that even the first time I saw it. So it informs how you watch it. You're like waiting for something to happen. And I think that's part of why it takes so long for us to see that relationship manifest. Like you do know from the trailer, you do know that something is coming. And I almost wonder if she's making us wait for it because of that. She wants you to see the layers of this relationship rather than just have the payoff. I think that's maybe a bit intentional here, and it works. I think it works personally.
Yeah, it's I think if I hadn't known I think the moment you do think, oh, okay, something's happening here, when they're sitting at the harpsichord and she's playing that melody, but then
Mm-hmm.
Eloise is just kind of staring at Marianne as she's playing, and Marianne doesn't even realize it, but there's just like
Mm-hmm.
20 straight seconds of her like side eye, like looking directly at her. And I think that's when you would have picked up on this is escalating to something more than a friendship. It's like a fascination.
And I think it's another moment of that gaze, that like staring, that not just like that penetration of a gaze, right? And like I think one of the things that draws her in that moment is clearly we've established she loves music. Like it's an important thing for her. She's in a convent partially for the arts. She wanted to stay there because she had access to music and books. I mean, what a life choice to make at this time, right? Like there were so few options for women at this time, and for her to need those things so deeply, and it's presented to us in this very subtle way, I think actually does tell us a lot about her and is part of what draws her into Marianne, who has this beautiful art form that she loves at her disposal, gives her access to that in some way.
That so two things here. I would also, and I think Janelle and I both picked up on this, was like I think there's one other thing she really likes about being at the convent, and she doesn't address it, but I think the fact
Yeah.
that it's all women there is
The
probably a
ladies.
third part of it. Like, yes, she loves art, she loves music, but hey, girls, girls, girls. And the second thing I'm going to say is, Mackenzie, I feel like you're trying to break me today, and I want to pat myself on the back because you said the penetration of gays, and I did not laugh at all. And it's just, you
I'm
need to
not even
just choose
doing
your
it on
words a little
purpose.
more carefully today. Okay, this whole month, like I am an
I
ally,
forgot
guys,
that I'm
but
dealing
I have
with
a limit of
actually a
like
12-year-old boy.
that's a funny phrase. Yes.
It's actually a 12-year-old boy this month. Got it. Got it. I honestly thought, to be fair, I will say, I was like, this is going to be Mackenzie being hyper intellectual about this film, and Lamar being like, lesbians, 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 was like what I thought
Well,
we were
we
coming
almost did
into.
blue as the warmest color, and knowing what I do about that movie, you're lucky we didn't do that one because I would have been sweating by this point.
We had to
Okay.
rein you in a little bit this time.
Just
A
a
little
bit,
bit.
just a bit. But one thing tying off of that I wanted to call out. You mentioned the cinematographer earlier, and
Mm-hmm.
just some of the shots in this, and the one that I'm tying into the longing glances is I love that first when they're first hanging out, and her goal still at this point, Marianne's goal is to paint and to like just get but Heloise is kind of hiding her face intentionally because I think she's suspicious that Marianne might be trying to do this. And that shot where they're side by side and Heloise is hidden behind Marianne from the audience, so we
Mm-hmm.
still haven't seen her entire face. And every
Mm-hmm.
time Eloise turns, they frame it so that you get a glimpse of Eloise, but then she will turn and look at Marianne of like, what are you looking at me for? And then she goes
Mm-hmm.
back to blocking her. I just think that is such a standalone, brilliant shot.
The ways that she chooses to move in and out of focus on their faces, I think is so intentional, and I think is supposed to be very representative of Marianne's view or of Eloise's
Yeah.
view. And because I think they're both zeroing in on each other, really, right? It's almost like, like predator and prey in the jungle kind of situation
Mm-hmm.
of just like eyeing each other and dancing around each other and trying to get a read. And I get this deep tension of that interactivity of like we're really observing and trying to understand each other, but it's almost subconscious because you're just walking through the world, right? You're just in a home, you're on a walk, you're on these things. And so it turns these, everyday normal minutia of life into these profound moments of observation of I'm really trying to learn about this person and understand this person. And we understand at first why that's happening for Marianne. She's trying to paint this portrait. She's trying to just remember what this woman looks like when she gets back to her sketchbook. And it's such a challenge for her. And I think that's one of the overarching themes of this, beyond just that perception and that viewing of each other. It's how do I remember this moment? How do I remember this person? How do I remember this experience that happened to me? Like memory is just a constant theme throughout. And it starts with her just trying to even look at her, I think. And it's really interesting how they present that throughout.
Is that when you talk about memory there? I wanted to ask you when she's seeing kind of this ghost image of Eloise in the wedding dress, do you
Mhm.
think in the moment, that's her in the past thinking, oh my God, I'm falling for this girl who is eventually going to have to get married? Or do you think that's a product of her remembering this story and being like, I should have seen this horrible thing coming, that we were eventually going to have to part?
You know, I think it's actually less about I should have, could have, would have. I
Mm-hmm.
think it's because they even say it towards the end, right? They're laying in bed together and she says like, don't don't be sad, like just remember. Like just
Mm-hmm.
remember this. And I think it's understanding, it's being at peace almost with the limitations of the world in which they live, and that the only thing they can glean and take from this experience is this moment, this joy, this learning about each other and experiencing each other, but also holding on to the memory of each other. And I think she cherishes that. It's very bittersweet, obviously, but I think all those sketches that she does and even the portrait of the lady on fire later are all in an effort to hold this memory for herself and treasure this experience that they had
Yeah,
at
there's
the end
that
of the day.
quote where she says something to the tune of like, eventually that image is how you'll remember her as me, basically.
Right. And I think that's what she's trying to challenge, right? She does all these other little sketches of her. She does the portrait of her on fire, which I think is such an intentional choice, right? Like, because what she sees when she looks at her, and I love the moments where they are calling out to each other what they see and how the tables get turned on Marianne of, yeah, you may be the portrait artist drawing me and you're perceiving me, but I'm perceiving you right back. This forcible, equal level playing field that she is calling out of, I am perceiving you too, and
Yeah,
I'm
they're
looking at
both
you too.
super observational and getting a
Yeah.
really good read on each other, which again is a sign of how much they like each other and where this is
How
heading. So that
interesting
scene
they
is
find
really
each
good.
other.
Mm-hmm.
And then the fire scene is one of the most beautiful in the film. Like again, coming back to just how these things are shot. Like this is all firelight and it's handled so well. And what I think comes through in that moment is that she's seeing her literally in a totally different light. She's seen these kind of almost peekaboo moments of these things that she believes about her, but then she sees her in all her glory, so to speak. And that's including her anger, her fire, her passion. Like she's a very quiet person as we've presented her. But like you said at the beginning, there are these very quiet portrayals happening, and it's so visual and it's so facial and it's so small, all these little physical moments and mannerisms. But what does come through is her passion and her anger at her circumstance and her desire to have a different life in whatever form. And for her to be framed by this fire is like beautiful and empowering and illuminating to Marianne. And so I think that's the true portrait, right? Like that's the portrait. This other one is the wedding portrait. This moment is the portrait of how she, Marianne, is going to remember Eloise.
Yeah, I think it's very symbolic. It's Eloise also doesn't even react to her dress being on fire. It's
Nope.
just almost like, what can I, like, doesn't even look down at it, really just sort of stands there and lets herself burn,
And
which,
when she does look at it briefly, she does nothing.
yeah,
There's a split
it's
second
just,
where she
I think
just
that's very, like I said, symbolic of what her real life situation is. It's like, I can do nothing about this because of, like you said, the time that we live in. This is just the way that life is going to be. So I'm just going to stand here and burn, basically. And yeah, we see that play out for sure. Yeah, to your point, that's the painting that eventually leads us into the entire, and that's, I think, the most accurate of the portraits that she's
right.
done of Eloise to this point is the one we see at the very beginning.
And I think it's so intentional, like I said, in terms of memory. She's forced herself to really work to remember that version because that's the version that she loved. Right. And I think you see three portraits over this period that are really different. The first
Mm-hmm.
one that she does is incredibly limited, right? In its understanding of Eloise. And I love that moment where she calls her out. She shows it to her and she admits it. I like that she chooses to admit it and tell her herself. And that scene is interesting. But she goes there and that reaction to her
Like,
work
is that how you see me? Yeah.
is that how you see me? And I think it's the difference, right? Between looking and seeing. right? She was just looking at her and sketching her and being technical about her. She even references, like, because she's an artist and she's been raised as an artist, her father's an artist. She's like, there's rules and conventions, there's things I have to do, especially in portraiture. It's very strict, right? So she's like, yes, this is, this is what I saw. And I love that Eloise in so few words is telling her, like, that's not me. But she sits for her, I think, because she wants her to see her. She wants her to understand her. And like the first portrait is all wrong. It's technically beautiful, but it's all wrong. And then we see the second portrait hold all the anger and the subtleties of her. And the one with her in the fire is like her in her rawest form. And I think they all just tell a very different story. And we see that progress.
Yeah, that playing out leads to, I think, two of the most like interesting things to me. First off, that argument that you mentioned where she shows her the painting, like admits it and says, here what I did, and it leads to this whole thing. But when she says, oh, I didn't know you were an art critic, and she turns around, well, I didn't know you were a painter, and I just address this like elephant in the room of,
I just love her lines are so cutting. Like again, like this screenplay is so minimal, but every word is so intentional. Every single word. And when she chooses to speak, there's this fire in her. I love that. She calls her right back out and says, I didn't know you were a painter, bitch. Like, just add a little bitch on the end of that,
Yeah, it's subtle. It's in the subtext there. But it also leads to, I love, there is, again, to shout out director, editor, cinematographer, there's a great hard cut when you're seeing her sit for the paintings and she's so still kind of stoic and they're trying to get this reaction. I just hate how she poses her, honestly. The whole like elbow on the table is so awkward and weird and uncomfortable looking. But there's this incredible, like, a nice lean. I don't know. The angle is all weird. Like, nobody leans like that unless you're trying to be a cool guy, like leaning up against the fence.
As school. I'm literally leaning on my chair, like this whole time.
All right, fine. Mackenzie leans like.
So you're talking shit about me, is what I'm hearing right now.
Yes,
that's
facts. But it leads to this incredible hard cut when they're hanging out outside of the painting and she's expressing herself and showing a lot more emotion. Yep. They're playing cards and she's laughing and smiling and being playful. And there's another great hard cut to her sitting and like all the emotion being drained out of her face. And I think that's really brilliant as well.
I agree. I think you see these two sides of her, right? And I think it's important to call out when her mother is gone is where she can really open up. And I don't think it's for a lack of love for and from her mother. It is just that when her mother is around, her world is framed by patriarchal convention. And when we see the freedom of these three women alone together on this island, then you have this almost domestic utopia of these women supporting each other and taking care of each other in all the ways and being free and letting loose and being funny and silly and more verbose and more themselves than they have been up to now. And that's when the fire sequence happens, right? I think that's very intentional. That happens because they have been free to explore these sides of themselves, and she kind of blossoms there. And I agree. I think going from that to the portrait is so intentional because that's something that is constraining her. That's something that's limiting her, is this portrait. It's going to, get her a husband, basically.
I think you just segued pretty well into one thing that I wanted to touch on before we wrap at some point, because I wanted to talk about the very small, but the supporting cast here, because you talk about the three of them, and I feel like we haven't really touched on Sophie as much, but she adds so much to this story from when Marianne first arrives and kind of giving the intel of what is going on and the circumstances surrounding it. But then Sophie gets her own story throughout this. And the abortion storyline, the pregnancy and abortion storyline is heartbreaking, but leads to two or three of the most powerful scenes in the movie, I would say.
And I would challenge not that this can't be your experience, but I would challenge that it in and of itself, it's heartbreaking, because what I saw about it was beautiful. It was women just accepting this reality. The first thing she asks her when she finds out that Sophie is pregnant is, do you want to be pregnant? Do you want to be a mother? And she says no. And that's not to get political, that should frame every single conversation. That should be the question. That should be the end of the question, right? That should be end of the question, end of the answer. Do you want to be a mother? No. Cool. Let's handle it. Right. So she immediately supports that decision. She doesn't impart onto her any judgment, any expectation, any constraint of this is the world you live in and what you have to do. She asks her what she wants and she resolves to help her do it. And I think that is a beautiful community right there of three women who are all accepting each other and each other's reality in a way that conventional society outside of this space isn't going to typically let them do. And again, it opens up these other experiences. That's why they're at the bonfire. That's why they see this woman. That's why they have these experiences together. And no, the procedure itself is never going to be a fun experience. And it's juxtaposed with this baby on
That's
the bed.
like, yeah,
It's
having a child next to you looking in your eyes as you're having this procedure done. I don't understand the logic of this, doctor, but what do I know? I'm not French.
well, and she is clearly, she's kind of the mother midwife type person in this village. And like, these are the realities. I think it's very intentional. These are the realities of the world in which she lives, of like, you can see this beautiful, adorable baby and still not want or be able to take that on. And so I think Sophie has this incredible moment of staring at what could be her future while also removing that possibility from her immediate future. And it's really interesting. It's really thought provoking. And I think what I love about it is that it's not framed in any kind of judgment. It is
No.
just supporting, you know?
Do you think the painting that she does after that, where I think it's Eloise's idea, right? Where she lays Sophie down and they kind of do this painting where it could be a painting of her giving birth, or it could be literally her capturing the moment of like, this is the decision you just, like, which do you think it is there, the painting that they're doing?
I think they're doing a birth scene to establish, to almost give like an alternate timeline. Like, what if, you know, what if this were the choice? And I think it's interesting that they all play with the idea. They're all okay to play with that idea, right, in that moment. And it could absolutely be just purely documentary, right, of this is a thing that happened, and an acceptance of that moment as well. I think both ways are a good read. I think it's interesting because none of these women are currently faced. I mean, the painter is not faced with this choice. Eloise is not faced with this choice, and they're really observers in this situation. And so it's an observational moment for them, I think, as well. And it's interesting that Sophie goes along with it. She's fine with it as well.
Yeah, Janelle said it kind of felt like they were forced. She was just like, lay down, we're going to do this thing. Didn't really get consent of like, hey, are you okay with us doing a painting of this awkward moment?
I think she felt safe with them. You know, I think my read on her and them is that she wouldn't have said anything to Marianne in the first place if she didn't feel safe with these women. So I think there's a little undercurrent of they trust each other.
Well, that trust, I think, and that dynamic of this trio, I think, really is what shows Eloise Marianne's full personality and like all the good that's in her. I think the way she handles this situation, I think it's very intentional that after this painting scene, the very next scene, I think, is the next day on the beach, and that's when they kiss for the first time. So I think it's them experiencing this traumatic moment, but also comforting this person in that, and they've all just shared this, that's very meaningful that it's the next scene where they finally kiss.
And I think the three of them all open up something in each other too. I mean, that night in the room where they're playing cards, but then when they're reading the myth of Orpheus and Eurydice, that's such a compelling moment to me, because they all light up in different ways, but they all light up in ways that say something about each of them. Like for Sophie, she's so brokenhearted at the way this Orpheus turns around and loses his love, right? That's the thing that is heartbreaking to her. Versus, you know, Eloise is just enraptured by this story and shocked by it. And Marianne's trying to interpret it. Like, these are their experiences as people. We have this young naivete, and then we have this woman who's exploring parts of the world that she's never explored before. And we have this woman who looks at the world all the time, and people and portraiture and landscapes and things, and she's always trying to analyze. And so it's like these three very different lenses wrapped around this myth that is a recurring theme for them. It's something that they go through. They are going to lose each other. They know that's the end of this story. And we see them call out like the lover's choice versus the poet's choice. What an interesting observation and interpretation that Marianne argues that he's making the poet's choice. He wants to remember her versus have her. Memory is more important to him than having her. And is that her interpretation because she knows that's all she can have, right? That's all she can experience from this relationship.
That debate is, to your point, like super fascinating to hear. I really like how it circles back around at the end of her saying turn around before she leaves. I do really like that, of like, get this one last
and that is
glimpse of me
so
before you have to go.
intentional.
Oh,
I
absolutely.
love it.
Yeah,
So
and then it
intentional.
just kind of goes, like, she closes the door, it goes to black, and then we do the cut to the present kind of thing. So that's very, very brilliant on the part of the director editor here, and probably screenwriter as well. But I was going to say,
I think she's trying to give her that last vision real quick before you move on, because I think
sure.
she's like, that's almost a gift for her too, because she knows they've come to understand each other so well, right? And she knows that memory is going to be important to her, and that their last moment can't be her hugging her goodbye in front of her mother. You know,
this awkward where we're not allowed to show any sort of like emotion.
Here's this last moment where you can see just me, and it's a gift, I think, really, even though it's haunting, but it's a gift.
That's like, it's weird when you watch films like, because they are kind of period pieces, and it's not 2026, so this is goodbye for all intents and purposes. We never plan on seeing each other again. It's not, you can't go follow her on Facebook and see how she's doing in 5 years and if she has kids.
You can't obsess with her, which is probably a blessing, let's be real.
Yeah. Also, that's the millennial in me. Like, I'm referencing Facebook. Sorry, guys. But yeah, I think the way that plays out, and then I can't remember if it's 2 scenes prior to that, but before that goodbye, the whole I'll remember conversation, and just calling, that is so adorable, but also like heartbreaking to watch. Of these are the little things. I feel like it's when a relationship ends, and even before you're looking at it 5 years later with nostalgia goggles, like, this is them literally, they're still in the relationship, but here's the little things that I will remember about this and carry forward with me. I think that's a great scene.
I think that's a beautiful scene. I think Marianne's intentionality around memory makes this experience far more beautiful for her than it is tragic. I think it's very easy to interpret this relationship and the way that it ends as tragic, because it's heartbreaking. It is heartbreaking, but I don't know that it's tragic, right? It's that she moved through this in a certain way, and it was unexpected, but once she knew it was happening, she moved through it in a certain way, and so did Eloise. And I think it allowed them to look at each moment with a different lens. Like, what would happen if you looked at your prior relationships knowing they would end, right? Like, you don't usually get the benefit of that. You're usually hoping for the best and that it's not going to end.
Right.
And so you're not preserving every moment in this memory of, I just want to appreciate this, or I want to experience the beauty of this, or I want to remember this moment as a beautiful moment regardless. And I think when you lose a relationship that you love, it's very easy to go back, and those memories become tainted by the sadness, by the loss. And I think because of the way that this relationship unfolds and the way they both understand that, they are not tainted by the loss. They are preserving the beauty in a lot of ways. And we get her with her a couple of more times, but in a very different way. She sees the later portrait of her with her child, and the page sneaking over to page 28 of that book of like, I still think of this, and I still remember this, and I still have this love that I can remember and appreciate.
Yeah, we kind of get like a double, I don't want to say happy ending, but comforting in a way of it. It reminds me of the same vibe, not the same exact, but the same vibe as La La Land, where you're getting some cold comfort of they both still love each other, but they can't be with each other. And you get that scene, and then you get this, 2 minute
Opera
and 25 second of the musical piece we referenced earlier in the film. And her, I mean, again, how this did not get an acting nomination is beyond me, because just that scene alone of her we're just slowly like zooming in on her and her emotional reaction to this piece of music while she's sitting there by herself. And I just think it's like a really just tour de force of facial emotion and expression.
Absolutely. And I think it is like the film's actual climax, if we're being real, because it's very easy to point to it being the moment they fall in love and they kiss and they make love, and like you see these beautiful, the coming to fruition of this buildup. That could be seen as it, it could be the portrait scene, the fire scene. I mean, it could be the leaving scene. There's lots of areas that you could interpret. I think it's this moment personally, because she goes to this opera because she just wants to see it. She happens to see her, and her worldview and her experience immediately changes, right? She's there to have this beautiful experience at this opera that she's excited about. She doesn't watch it. She watches Eloise. The implication is that she never once looks at the stage, right? She's just looking at her. We are just looking at her. And we are slowly, like you said, panning into her and seeing just every drop, every breath, every raising of her chest, every freckle, every hair out of place. You're seeing her just have this profound experience. And can you just imagine watching somebody that you love have a profound experience, not have the experience with them, watching them have that experience? There's so many layers to that moment, and then it just cuts it away. It's such a powerful ending and so beautiful. And I just think there's so many levels to it that you can connect to and find something in.
Yeah, 100%, dude. I agree with you. I think that's the emotional climax of the film. You would think it would be the moment that they fall in love. You would think it would be the moment they have to part. But yeah, this is a slow roller coaster that never really goes down until the closing credits.
No. And I think what I like that Marianne says earlier too, to the student that I mentioned, is that this is the one student who painted her sad. You know, they're practicing portraiture and they paint her a bunch of different ways. And this is the one student who saw the sadness when she saw that portrait. And she tells her at the end, "You painted me sad." And she's like, "Well, you were." And I love that, where she's like, you had this moment, you know. I think she thinks herself very stoic. Again, she's not as used to being perceived. And for her to have been seen in that way by somebody, I think speaks to that she let that kind of come across her face, but also her response of, "I'm not anymore." Because I think she did work through the sadness, right? Even just sitting there and remembering the whole experience is a thing that allowed her to heal, because she walks us through those moments that are further affirmation that this was a beautiful moment. Her seeing the portrait on the page 28, her seeing her enjoying music and something that she loves and is in love with, is such a beautiful memory for her. And so I think she does come out of that truly not being sad, being grateful for this experience.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's a very somber ending, but I think as happy as a story like this could get. There's 3 really quick things I'll do before my rating, but I wanted to call out, maybe in the first 30 to 45 minutes, with it going a little slow, I do want to credit this for being pure drama for the most part. I think there's a couple little components of humor and laughter where you either laugh or smile. I think the Contessa has the funniest line of the film when she's talking about bringing her with her to another city. And she's like, "Yeah, I'll bring you. We'll use, you can do a portrait of my friend. That'll be your excuse to see this incredible city." And then she goes, "Oh, that sounds great." And she goes, "Well, it's not all going to be great. My friend is very ugly." I think that's the best line, like funniest line of the film.
It is so funny. And she's like, "Good luck painting her." Like, she's real.
Yeah, they have like this laugh. And there's a couple other little lines where they're talking about,
that whole scene is actually great. Their dynamic is also really great, which makes you, again, a little bit sad, because you're like, imagine what this group of women could be together if this were allowed, you know? And, because they vibe too. They have such a good energy.
Yeah, there's other also, I didn't want to like make any lighthearted about the sequence with the pregnancy and whatnot, but there are pieces of that are a little absurd. They have her do this physical combat where she falls off whatever she's hanging for. Like, that's in there for a reason. It's meant to be a little absurd that they're trying these kind of old wives' tales of how you could potentially get rid of a child, right? They're running beach sprints and things like that. So the humor in this, I feel like maybe 1 or 2 extra lines in the first 30 or 45 minutes it works as this slow build drama, but I feel like maybe a couple little pieces of humor in the first half hour might have helped me to get through that a little easier.
I do think that the humor here is a bit subtle, but it's very funny when it happens. And I do also think it has an intention too. It's speaking to, again, the varying maturity levels of these women and their different life experiences almost every time, you know?
Yes. Yeah. Like you said, this is such a great, for having basically 3.5 main cast members. It's so compelling for a 2-hour film. It holds your attention. But the last 2 things I had were, I didn't say enough about the cinematographer I mentioned earlier. I'm a sucker for when there's a boat or like motion shot where the camera remains steady with whatever it's on. So that opening on the rowboat where the camera is kind of staying level with the boat rocking is really, really well done. There's that shot immediately where she's sitting naked in front of the fire with the two canvases on either side and all of them drying and her smoking a cigarette naked. Like that shot is beautiful.
Well, and she does all this, she does a lot of candlelight only shots, and that's kind of a hallmark of her. And I think it's true to life in this case too, right? Like we have to deal with this period that we're in where everything is candlelit. If it was overly lit, it would be weird. And I think that's also why we contend with the daylight and the painting and how that limits the story as well. So yeah, there's some stunning shots here. I think and the fire scene, like, to me is obviously one of my favorites, but I think it's so well shot and so punctuated by the music that is so minimal throughout that it's such a great marriage of these different filmmaking skills.
Yeah, she does a fantastic job of shooting this. The very last thing I had was just, I'm going to go out on a limb here and say, I think this movie was more romantic and sexy than Wuthering Heights, the new Wuthering Heights.
Ooh,
I'm gonna retain
it.
more from what I saw here, not in a weird way, but like in a romantic way of like what was captured here. I especially really like the scene where they're doing drugs together and her eyes get huge. I just think like that little 3-minute sequence is incredibly like hot, steamy, but also romantic. And it just goes to like the whole shock and awe of Wuthering Heights. I just go back and listen to that episode if you want to hear me criticize it, but it's still fresh in my head. And that's why I'm bringing it back up now. Apologies.
No, I think this is it's very sexy, but in subtle ways. Cause like you said, I mean, there was the moment where they kiss and you see like the saliva, the cruel intentions moment, but that's not like the sexiest moment by any means. There's all these like
armpit. I didn't know that was a thing.
I wouldn't say that would be mine. No, I wouldn't say that. But I just think like there's just all these really subtle moments where, again, a lot of it's just like the looks. It's the way they look at each other. It's like
it is a build up of tension.
100%. Okay, so all that said, what's your rating?
My gut immediately said, I hadn't really thought it through entirely. I think on Letterboxd, I gave it either 4 or 4.5 stars. That would put me somewhere between like an 8 and a 9. So I'll go 8.5. I think it's really good. I do think rewatch will be better, but the first 30 minutes, 45 minutes, it's meant to be a slow build, but it is a very intentional slow build. So I think if the first 30 minutes had a couple extra pieces of witty dialogue, humor, whatever it was, as opposed to just this sort of slow, like I said, I could have been watching a horror movie of like how slowly this being built up and this girl that we're not seeing. But yeah, I'd say 8.5. What about you?
It's like a solid 9. Fair. Maybe. I mean, I could maybe go like 9.5, but I think the pacing at the beginning, really how you called it out as a fair criticism. Otherwise, I would probably say like 9.5 as a gut check. Because I've seen this 3 times. I see something different every time. I love movies like that personally. I love that I can rewatch and I find more layers to it and I find more to intrigue me every time. And I think as quiet as this film is, it's just a feast for the senses. It's visually stunning and there's so many things happening here that you can take in over and over again and have a slightly different experience. It's very much as much a piece of art as the artwork in it. You know, I think that's what's cool about this is it's just the layers of this composition. You know, it's really beautiful. And while I'm here, I do want to call out the actual artist because I meant to do that earlier. Helene Delmar is the painter who did all the paintings that we see, and she painted for 16 hours a day during the course of filming. And she was basing these paintings on the blocking of the scenes. And they actually were exhibited in Paris when this premiered as well. So just so much art in this film that I love and respect.
Shout out that they had somebody come in and do all these pieces specifically for the film. That's cool. Yeah. I realize I forgot to do my worst fact. Do you want the worst fact? It kind of ties into one of the paintings.
I do want the worst fact. Yeah, always. What's up?
So apparently in the scene where her dress catches on fire, which we've talked about, it's in the title of the film, in case you forgot. So in that scene, after her dress catches on fire, from then on, there are scorch marks on her dress. So thank you, IMDb, for pointing out that the continuity director was doing their fucking job. That's great to know.
Okay, first of all, that is a terrible fact. But second of all, what I will say is I looked for it this time because I was like, I want to make sure that like her dress isn't fine. She doesn't have another dress. So again, when I say multi-watches, the things that you look for get really granular.
Fair. I mean, they said in the fact that it's on a specific part of the dress. So maybe they're pointing out that it's not continuity. Maybe it's on the back of the dress instead of the front, but I just can't imagine them making that mistake. It is kind of
the like side back.
Yeah,
it's there. Yeah, it makes sense. Anyways, good call out. Good call out. Okay, so I have one for you though. This is a curveball, guys. I haven't really told Lamar about this. No, not a shitty fact. So I've decided to implement the Golden Garnish Award. Ooh. You guys, Cannes has the Palme d'Or, which if you didn't know is the Golden Palm. And this again competed for the Golden Palm. So it kind of inspired me to be like, we should have a like, especially with things like this, where it is just such a feast of everything is so great, so well done. Like, what's the best part about this film? So like the Golden Garnish for you, the cherry on top, the MVP, the best piece of this watching experience for you. And we can give him a little award, a little awardy.
That is a tough call. There are a lot of options. There's at least 3 that immediately
I picked a good one for this to start, didn't I?
Yeah, because you could go director, you could go cinematographer, you can go either of the 2 leads. You can go the painter, whose art is featured in this.
Fuck yeah.
I think my, again, gut goes straight to Adèle Haenel. Am I saying that right? Haenel?
Yeah.
I just think her performance, this film doesn't work without that. And that, like I said, last 2.5 minutes, she has to crush that, I think, for this movie to land.
To work.
And you said that's the highest point of the movie. So I'm going to go with her. How about you?
I absolutely agree, actually. That was going to be mine as well. And it's not because, you know, Marianne's character doesn't give Noémie doesn't give an incredible performance. She does. And there are especially moments while she's painting that are really powerful. But I agree. I just think that last scene and the way she performs it, but also throughout her facial expressions and her intentionality with them and just subtlety with how she performs this role throughout is just incredible.
She also has to go between, it's a very reserved character who only reveals herself in specific moments, and to have to play that sort of stoic, reserved part and then play the card thing where she's being like lighthearted and silly, but like it's very like off on switch, and she alternates just brilliantly.
I agree. Okay, so she's our first winner.
Congratulations.
The Golden Garnish.
I think you're shipping to France.
Yeah, sure. Cheers to that.
Cheers.
All right. Thank you guys for joining. This was really fun. This to me was just a beautiful film. I'm so excited that you got to see it. I really love this one. We had lots of entries that we were struggling between. So thank you for letting me shove this one on you. I think it was worth it.
Yeah.
Come back next week for our G entry. A very fun one, in my opinion.
Which I think everyone who I talked to, as soon as I said we're doing Pride Month, immediately mentioned this.
They were like, you better do The Birdcage,
yes.
Which 100%. Yes, we are. It's just a great movie in general, but it's certainly a great entry for this month. So come back next week to hear us chat about that. But in the meantime,
follow us on Instagram. We drink and we watch things. I've been trying to put little conversation starters into our different reels. So if you comment in those threads, we will read them on the pod. This was actually in our messages. So shout out Johnny B Good 04 on Instagram, who's messaged us a few times, but agrees with me. Wuthering Heights, he said it looked bad. I don't know that he saw it, but Johnny can confirm. Did not have a great time. Go ahead, listen to that episode if you want. I don't think it was a horrible movie, but it just did not meet expectations for me. Also said, go ahead.
I think it's just not Wuthering Heights. I think if you just like watch it as a movie, it's different.
Horny Heights.
Horny Heights. That's a great one. That's a great one.
And also shouted out, it's been a ways back that we did A Knight's Tale, but he said that's his favorite Paul Bettany performance, and I'm struggling to think of what would be my favorite, but I think that is a solid one. He's so clever in that.
That's mine. Funny. I just love that him as Geoffrey Chaucer is the greatest thing I think I've ever seen him do. 110%. It's awesome.
Cool. So yeah, follow it. I mean, Instagram's where we do most of our interaction these days. So that's where to find us, y'all.
Sounds good. All right. For now, go have a drink and watch a thing. Cheers.
Cheers.